Hey everybody, another week has gone by at the Devil's Advocates, and I just wanted to share with you on Sunday, a kind of look back on the week and the things that we did this week in case you missed it. This is kind of for those people who don't watch all of our channel and don't watch every case that we follow and don't realize that we do cover like 5-6 different cases. This is a way to kind of get caught up on the week and the major things that you may have missed. There was a common theme in this week, and that was bad judges. And I want to be clear. I'm not saying necessarily, I'm not accusing the judges of being bad, but we really highlighted a couple of bad judge situations in at least 2 of our major cases. I'm going to bring it on screen. I want to show you a few things to talk to you about the commonalities that surfaced this week, as well as what you may have missed. This is a picture of my YouTube channel. Across the top is what we're going to focus on as this week's videos. So we had a long form video, 40 minutes long, on the Kopaka standoff. That wasn't part of the bad judges. We'll get to that in a second, but I wanted to cover that. If you are familiar with the Idaho 4 case that we cover heavily, Idaho 4 had a lot of people rumored to think that Brent Kopaka, a Army 82nd Airborne vet, may have been involved. And there was a standoff in which he was shot and killed 1 month and a couple days after the murders of the Idaho 4. And we have been breaking down public records requests on Brent Kopaka's shooting and what happened that night. And this has the video that you may have missed on the early part of the week, Monday. You may have missed some of the cleanest audio you'll ever hear on released public records request information and transcripts that will show what was happening shortly before Brent Kopaka was shot and killed. And it may lead to a lot of questions about whether or not that shooting happened the way they said it did. No, I don't think we need another conspiracy, so don't worry about it. But it is related to Idaho 4. It is very related to Idaho 4 because of the rumors that were out there. So, and by the way, did you know there was a hatchet buried in a wall in Brent Kopaka's room? Did you ever hear the rumors in Idaho 4 about hatchets being used? There was a hatchet buried in Brent Kopaka's room. So if you don't know that, you definitely don't want to miss that video. We also covered this next video over. If you're looking at the top, we've covered Rex Heuermann's case, the Long Island serial killer. That's another case that happened on Tuesday. Did Rex Heuermann kill Sandra Castillo, or Castilla? I keep saying Castillo, Castilla. Again, if you're not familiar with that case, it is not one of our more popular cases, so it's kind of a slow-moving one right now, but there's a lot of interesting shit. Police corruption, DA corruption, possibly police officers that may have been involved with the Long Island serial killer or covering up for the Long Island serial killer. This case mostly focuses on a early person that was attributed to be the Long Island serial killer's killing Sandra Castilla. But it turns out that her murder may have been committed by somebody else, but lumped into the Long Island serial killer case. And so again, at our channel, where we focus on the presumption of innocence until proven guilty, we also focus on if they get the wrong guy for a murder, that means that that murder goes unsolved and that killer goes free. So in Sandra Castilla's case, we want to make sure they got it right. Was it one of Rex's, if he even is the Long Island serial killer? And if it wasn't one of his, then whose was it? So we want to talk about that. So the 2 last cases are the ones we're going to talk about, the cases that were the bad judges, if you will. We had a video in the Delphi case, the appeal of Richard Allen, and how Fran Gull, the judge who oversaw the trial of Richard Allen, how bad was Fran Gull in comparison to how bad people think Judge Stephen Hippler was in the Idaho 4 case. And again, I'm not trying to tell you who is bad or not bad. What I'm saying is these judges, both from kind of small town community kind of things, both ran trials that seemed to be sketchy at best for a fair trial. And in fact, in Richard Allen's case, they're actually appealing that trial as being unfair, and his constitutional rights were violated by potentially Judge Fran Gull. And the Idaho 4 case, Stephen Hippler, you know, if you followed that case, that a lot of people who believe that it didn't happen the way they said thought that Stephen Hippler ran an unfair trial. So we compare those 2 cases in the Delphi case special this week. So that video, DD017, DD stands for Devils in the Details, episode 017, we broke down some of the similarities between Judge Fran Gull and Stephen Hippler to ask which one of these judges did more of a disservice to the accused. And was it wrong, or did they do the right thing? And what's the difference between an appeal and post-conviction relief? That's another thing we talk about, by the way. We like to educate people on this channel about legal terms. And in the Idaho 4 case, you may know that the accused and convicted Bryan Kohberger had pled guilty. He entered a plea deal and waived his appeal. But that's not necessarily the end of the story, because it doesn't address post-conviction relief. What is the difference? You need to understand if you don't. Even I didn't fully understand the differences between an appeal and post-conviction relief. Does Bryan Kohberger still have post-conviction relief options? And will that come out? And will they start addressing some of the perhaps unfair issues of not being able to submit alternative suspects, or maybe some things were wrong with the PCA and the Franks hearing didn't go the way it should have gone? Maybe not technically illegal, which might be the basis of an appeal. Maybe not technically illegal, but maybe unfair. So if you don't understand the differences between an appeal and post-conviction relief and how that might play out in the Idaho 4 case, make sure you watch that video. Who takes the cake? Judge Fran Gull versus Stephen Hippler. And then the last one we talked about is another case that I feel also involves some judging issues. And that's the theme of the week. Judges are the theme of the week. It's called Judge Fight in the Mickey Stines case. In the Mickey Stines case, the judge that is going to be overseeing the trial, Koren is his name, Christopher Koren. The defense of Mickey Stines is asking for Christopher Koren to be basically dismissed, because it turns out that Judge Koren may, based on a newly released video, may be personal friends with the murdered judge, Kevin Mullins, who was shot and killed in the judge's chambers, Kevin Mullins. And so therefore, if the judge who's going to oversee the trial of the man who killed a friend and colleague, is that basis for recusal? Should that judge recuse himself because maybe he can't impartially rule on somebody who killed a friend and colleague? That's the question at the end of the day, however. Was Kevin Mullins actually a friend or just a colleague? Or was he a friend and colleague? And can Christopher Koren judge fairly? If so, and will Christopher Koren dismiss himself? Or are we heading for yet another trial in which maybe judges decide what happens in the case and not a jury? If you're not sure what I mean by that, is how often are our trials basically determined by the judge on what the judge will and won't allow into evidence, what a judge will and or who a judge will and won't allow as an expert witness. When they decide what's going to be presented to a jury, sometimes the trial's over before it even gets started. And that's in the hands of the judge. How much power do judges have? And will we see another case like Idaho 4, like Richard Allen, and now Mickey Stines, in which a judge will significantly impact? Should it not be a decision of the people, we the people, making a decision, being judged by a jury of your peers, not by a judge? A jury of your peers. So that's the theme for the week. I hope you caught it. We had lots and lots of blockbuster things this week. We had amazing record numbers on our nightly live show. We do a nightly live show called Crimes After Dark. We have a panel of guests, including law enforcement. We have deep thinkers who are into the government type stuff and deep state kind of angles on things. We have EMTs, firefighters, other channel heads like Dago from True Crime Cafe. We've got the whole gamut at our place. And we've been having record numbers this week of amazing panels, mostly focused on Idaho 4 this week. So if you didn't see those, you can get those on replay, by the way. On replay is hours and hours and hours of Idaho 4 talk if you're big into the Idaho 4 case. You do not want to miss some of those amazing panels. Like the night that we went an extra hour, we had 3 hours instead of our normal 2 hours. And we had call-in guests that came up. That show was off the hook. So if you haven't seen it, make sure you catch some of those lives, because again, we're talking about newly released forensic documents that talk about what order the victims were killed in Idaho 4. Whether or not the killer started on the 3rd floor or the 2nd floor has started to become clarified as new documents. Yes, there's still new documents coming out in a case that's been long over. There's still new documents. And there's documents that shed light into possible more what we would call fuckery in the case. Yes, I dropped the F-bomb. I do that from time to time. More fuckery in the case in which detectives diluted samples of blood before the forensics team showed up, and therefore potentially destroyed evidence and renumbered evidence. I laugh when I say it, I laugh when I say it. You need to be watching those lives. A lot of times we get into the details that'll blow your mind. And by the way, for members only, as a final caveat, for $2.99, if you want to be members only, a lot of times I will cover live reads of documents and body cam footage in which it's the first time I've ever seen it with you. I don't like to do that on the public feed because I don't know what we're going to see. And I often will find out something I say might change my mind a half hour into the show, and I'll be like, oh shit, that explains that. I shouldn't have said that earlier, which is why when I do the public stuff, the stuff that everyone else sees for free, it is more vetted. I try to make a lot less mistakes over there. But in the private for members only area, you get to see raw reactions to things and a lot of times they do end up being correct. And sometimes I'm like, oh, if I had just talked a little bit longer and read a little bit further, I would get the answer to my own question. But if you like being on the cutting edge, then for $3, you can get, I want to say hundreds of hours. But you're definitely going to get lots and lots and lots of hours of member only content that's already there. And you'll get invited to almost daily member-only lives where we break down legal documents in real time. So that's the week at the Devil's Advocates. I hope that you checked us out this week. I hope you've liked and subscribed. If you haven't done so by now, you really need to. It's a big deal. We're making a lot of inroads. I feel like we're getting closer than ever on the Idaho 4 case to understanding what actually happened that night. I know you think, some of you in America, that we all know what happened. The guy pled guilty. That's the end of the story. Like, I get that every single day. DA, I get this. I just got this recently. This will sum up how a lot of people feel about the channel. DA, I watch your show, and you have a lot of amazing things that really make me think. But I can't get over the fact that Bryan Kohberger pled guilty. People don't plead guilty to things they didn't do. That's the part that I can't get over. If you still think that way in America, that people don't plead guilty to things they didn't do, then you're not paying attention to our American judicial system. Enough said about that. Thank you for watching the channel, for supporting the cause. We are not trying to get killers off for things that they did. That is not what we're about. What we're about is shedding light into a broken judicial system, systemic problems in law enforcement that need to be resolved. We believe in constitutional rights for all, including the accused, especially the accused, because we believe in this country that a person is to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. And a lot of times we convict people in the court of public opinion. So this is the counter to public opinion. If you like that, make sure you're watching and subscribe, and we'll see you in the After Dark show. Thanks.